Please leave a comment where you are watching from. I'd been single for about a year after the end of a quiet, low-drama relationship that just fizzled out. I wasn't in a rush to date again, but eventually, I got tired of eating takeout alone and watching couples hold hands in grocery stores. So I downloaded a few apps, Hinge, Bumble, the usual rotation, and started swiping. Most of it was forgettable. A few conversations that went nowhere, a couple of awkward first dates that ended in dead air. I was about ready to give up again when I matched with Rachel. Her profile caught my attention right away. She had this warm, open smile in every photo. Her hair was a mess of curls, and one picture showed her holding a violin in what looked like a subway station. Her bio was short: musician, dog lover, collector of weird mugs. She messaged me first, which I liked. "So, are you more of a coffee or tea person?" I said coffee, she said herbal tea, and we spent the next few days arguing playfully about caffeine and how it ruins your soul, her words. She was clever, funny, a little chaotic in a charming way. We moved to texting pretty quickly. She sent voice notes, which no one ever does, and they made me laugh out loud. She called me sir, ironically, and claimed she could beat me in Mario Kart blindfolded. I liked her. A lot. More than I expected to. After about a week of texting and late-night calls, she suggested we meet. She said there was an outdoor concert happening at a park near her place. Local bands, food trucks, casual vibes. It sounded perfect. We picked a Saturday, and I even ironed a shirt, which should tell you how seriously I was taking it. The day of the concert, around 3 p.m., she texted me. "Bad news, concert's canceled." Rain check. The sky outside was clear. No rain. I asked what happened. She said the venue messed something up with permits. "Total mess," she wrote. "But you should still come over. I've got wine. And Mario Kart." I hesitated. I'd been looking forward to something public, something with other people around. But we'd been talking nonstop for over a week. I felt like I knew her, and I really wanted to meet her. I said sure. Her apartment was in a quiet part of town, tucked above a bakery that smelled like cinnamon and burnt sugar. She buzzed me in, and I climbed the narrow staircase to the second floor. She opened the door before I could knock. She looked just like her pictures, same smile, same curls, wearing a t-shirt that said "Dog hair is my glitter." She hugged me like we were old friends. Her place was small but cozy. Books stacked everywhere, plants in mismatched pots. A huge dog bed in the corner, but no dog in sight. She poured us each a glass of red wine, and put on some jazz in the background. We sat on the couch and talked for hours. It was easy, effortless. Eventually, we did play Mario Kart. She wasn't lying, she was good. She beat me 3 times in a row, and called me rookie every time. At some point, I realized it was past midnight. I stood up to leave, and she looked genuinely disappointed. "Stay," she said. "You've had wine. Just crash on the couch." I paused. She wasn't wrong. I'd had a couple glasses. And I was tired. "Okay," I said. "Just the couch." She gave me a blanket, turned off the lights, and headed to her room. I lay there for a few minutes, scrolling through my phone, thinking about how well the night had gone. Then I heard her door open. She walked back out, barefoot, and sat on the edge of the couch. "I can't sleep," she said. "You're too far away." I laughed, unsure what she meant. Then she leaned in and kissed me. It caught me off guard, but I kissed her back. It was soft, slow, and then suddenly not. She pulled away and said, "Come to bed." I hesitated. It's not that I didn't want to. I did. But something about the way she said it, flat, almost robotic, made my stomach twist. I told her I was okay on the couch. She stared at me for a second, then stood up and went back to her room without a word. I lay awake for a long time after that. In the morning, she was back to normal. Smiling, making coffee, teasing me about snoring, which I don't do. I thanked her for the night and said I'd text her later. She kissed me on the cheek and said, "You better." I walked home feeling a little off, but mostly okay. That night, I got a text from her. "Miss you already." I smiled and replied, "Had a great time. Let's do it again soon." That's when things got weird. Over the next few days, she started texting constantly. Like every hour. If I didn't respond right away, she'd send more. "Hey, you okay? Did I do something wrong?" I told her work was busy. She said she understood. But the messages didn't stop. Then came the photos. At first, they were normal, selfies, her dog, a new mug she found at a thrift store. Then they got strange. A picture of my building, taken from across the street. A blurry photo of me leaving work. You look so serious today, face blowing a kiss. I didn't know what to say. I asked her if she'd been in the neighborhood. She replied, I just missed you. Is that weird? I didn't respond. The next day, I came home to find a small package at my door. Inside was a mug, white with black letters that read, I'm watching you. No note. No name. Just the mug. I blocked her number. She made a new one. Texted me again. Why are you doing this? I thought we had something real. I blocked that one too. That night, I woke up to banging on my front door. 3 hard knocks, then silence. I looked through the peephole. No one. I called the building manager the next morning. He said the security cameras didn't catch anything. For a few days, things were quiet. Then I got a message request on Instagram from a new account with no profile picture. Still think about you. I didn't respond. Weeks went by. I started to relax. Then one night, I was out with friends, finally starting to feel like myself again. I got home around 1 a.m., opened my door, and found her sitting on my couch. I froze. She smiled, like nothing was wrong. You left the window unlocked, she said. I didn't know what to do. I was shaking. Rachel, you need to leave, I said. She laughed. I just wanted to talk. You don't have to be scared. I backed toward the door and told her I was calling the police. She stood up, suddenly furious. You're just like the others, she said. Liars. Cowards. She grabbed a glass from the table and threw it at the wall. It shattered. I ran out and called 911. She was still screaming when the officers arrived. They arrested her. She kicked one of them. Later, I found out she had a history of this. Other guys. Same pattern. But no one had pressed charges. I did. She ended up with a restraining order. I moved a month later, and I haven't dated since. So this happened when I was 20, working the closing shift at a Taco Bell in a mid-sized city in Michigan. I was in college, taking night classes and working part-time just to keep up with rent and tuition. It wasn't glamorous, obviously, but it paid the bills, and the crew I worked with was decent. We had a rhythm, headphones in the kitchen, jokes over the headset, and just enough chaos to keep things interesting. I'd been single for a while and mostly stayed off dating apps, but every once in a while I'd get bored and re-download Tinder or Bumble, mostly for entertainment. Swipe a little during slow periods, maybe match with someone, and then delete the app again by the end of the week. That's when I matched with Riley. She was cute. Blonde, sharp chin, kind of a cool aesthetic. Her profile said she was 22 and into hiking, iced coffee, and deep conversations at 2 a.m. I messaged her something dumb about not being a hiker, but being very skilled in the art of late-night tacos. She replied in less than a minute. You had me at tacos. We started talking. Nothing serious, just casual back and forth. She was easy to talk to, flirty without being over the top, and asked a lot of questions about my job. Like a lot. Do you usually work nights? Which Taco Bell? Do you take your breaks around the same time every shift? I figured she was just trying to make conversation. Maybe she was bored too. I told her I usually worked 4 p.m. to close, and she joked that she'd have to swing by one night and try my legendary crunch wraps. I laughed, said she should, and didn't think much of it. A few days later, I was working a Friday night shift. It was slow, just me on headset and one guy in the back doing prep. Around 10:30 p.m., I got a notification. Riley had messaged me. Hey, are you working tonight? I replied, Yup, just about to start cleaning up. She sent back a winky face and said, I might come say hi. I smiled at my phone, kind of amused. I didn't expect her to actually show up. I figured it was just playful texting. About 15 minutes later, a silver SUV pulled into the drive-thru. I was halfway through wiping down the counter when the headset buzzed. I did my usual spiel. Welcome to Taco Bell. Go ahead with your order when you're ready. There was a pause, and then a voice said, Hey, is this Josh? I froze. It was a woman's voice, soft but very clear. Yeah, I said cautiously. I thought so, she said. Recognized your voice. It's Riley. I felt a weird chill crawl up my neck. I hadn't told her which Taco Bell I worked at. There were at least 5 in the area. I never gave her the address. She figured it out. I tried to play it cool. Oh hey, I said. Didn't think you'd actually come through. She laughed. I got bored. Thought I'd surprise you. The speaker crackled. I waited for her to order, but she didn't say anything. Just silence. You want something? I asked. Another pause. Then, nah, just wanted to see you. I told her to pull around. She did. I stepped up to the window, and there she was, same girl from the pictures, slightly messier hair, eyes wide like she was excited or nervous or both. She leaned toward the window, like we were old friends. For a second, I didn't know what to say. I was still trying to wrap my head around how she'd found me. She smiled and said, "You look just like I imagined." I laughed awkwardly and said thanks. She didn't order anything. Just sat there, engine running, staring at me like I was supposed to say something meaningful. I said, "Well, nice seeing you. I should probably get back to it." She didn't move. Instead, she said, "So, when do you get off?" I told her it'd be after midnight. She nodded slowly, like she was filing that away. "Cool. Maybe I'll come back then." I smiled, trying to make it polite and non-committal. "Maybe." She drove off. I stood there for a second, headset still on, just processing how weird that was. I told the guy in the back about it, and he just raised an eyebrow. "Dude, she found you at work without an address? That's not cute. That's stalker level." I laughed it off. "Nah, it's probably just a coincidence." But it wasn't. The next night, I was working again. Same shift. Around 10 p.m., same SUV rolls through the drive-thru. This time, she doesn't say anything when I greet her. Just pulls straight to the window. I open it, and she says, "You didn't answer my message." Which was true. She had messaged me the night before after she left, something like, "You're even cuter in person." I hadn't replied. I figured I'd let it fizzle out. I told her I'd just been busy. She stared at me for a second, and then said, "So are you seeing someone?" I shook my head. "No, just not really looking for anything right now." She nodded slowly, like she was disappointed but not surprised. Then she said, "You shouldn't lie to people. It's rude." And with that, she drove off. The next day, she showed up again. This time, she came inside. It was dead quiet, just me at the front, scrolling through orders. I looked up, and there she was, standing by the counter like she'd been there for a while. She asked for a water cup. I gave it to her. She didn't leave. Instead, she sat at a table in the corner and watched me. Didn't eat. Didn't drink. Just sat there. I texted my manager, who was out back on a break, and said, "Hey, can you come up front? That girl from the drive-thru is here again." He came out, took one look at her, and said, "That's the third time she's been here this week, right?" I nodded. He walked over and asked her if everything was okay. She smiled sweetly and said, "Just waiting for a friend." 15 minutes later, she left. That night, I blocked her on Tinder. The next day, she came back. This time, she didn't speak. Just pulled through the drive-thru, stared at me through the window, and then drove off. It was like a game to her. Like she was trying to see how far she could push it before I snapped. Finally, my manager had enough. He waited until she came inside again, this time during a rush, and asked her to leave. Told her she wasn't allowed to hang out unless she was ordering food. She looked at him like he'd insulted her personally. "You don't have to be mean," she said. "I'm just here to see my friend." He told her again, firmly, to leave. She did. Later that night, I checked my phone. She'd blocked me. No messages. No profile. Gone. Like it never happened. But I still think about her sometimes. The way she looked at me like she knew me. Like I owed her something. Like we were already in a relationship I hadn't agreed to. I was the kind of girl who watched romantic comedies every weekend and dreamed about whirlwind love stories that started with a look across a crowded room. But in reality, I'd never had a serious relationship, just a lot of texting and awkward hallway smiles. It was the week leading up to Valentine's Day, and I was feeling especially single. My social feed was full of couples posting cheesy countdowns, heart-shaped pancakes, and my person captions. I told myself I didn't care, but I did. I wanted someone to think about me. Just for a day. So when I matched with a guy named Connor on a low-traffic dating app one probably shouldn't have even been on, I fell into it fast. He said he was 18, a senior at another high school nearby. He had that scruffy, slightly older look, longish hair, a jawline that made him look like he belonged in a CW show, and a smirk that made it hard to tell if he was joking or just confident. His messages were casual at first, then flirty. He called me cutie by the second day. Normally that would have made me cringe, but I was craving attention, and he gave it to me. He said all the things I wanted to hear at the exact moment I was vulnerable enough to believe them. By February 13th, he asked if I wanted to hang out the next evening, Valentine's Day. "I don't want to do anything cheesy," he said. "Just chill. Drive around, talk, maybe grab milkshakes or something." I hadn't made any plans. I wasn't expecting a Valentine's Day date, especially not with someone who seemed this into me. I asked where we'd meet, and he said he'd pick me up. That gave me pause. I'd never met him in person. We'd only been talking for a few days. But he was charming, said all the right things, and part of me wanted the story, wanted to say I had a Valentine too. So I agreed. I told my parents I was going to a movie with a friend. I didn't want to explain who Connor was. I didn't want the questions. I got dressed in my best cool but casual outfit, jeans, a cropped sweater, and just enough makeup to make me feel older. He texted when he arrived. I walked outside and saw him in a beat-up navy blue sedan idling in front of my house. The windows were tinted, and the passenger door didn't open right away. I stood there awkward until he leaned over and finally unlocked it. When I got in, I noticed a couple of things right away. First, he looked older than his photos. Not by a lot, but enough. Maybe not 18. Maybe 20, even 21. Second, his car smelled like stale fast food and something else I couldn't place at first, something sharp, almost metallic. But I smiled and said hi. He didn't say much at first. Just nodded and drove off. I thought we were getting milkshakes. I asked when we passed the main strip with all the fast food joints. We will, he said. I just want to show you something first. We started heading away from town. I kept trying to make conversation, asking about school, music, his plans for next year, but he was distracted, vague. He kept checking his mirrors, changing the radio station, and glancing down at his phone. I felt the shift before I understood it. That feeling when the air gets too quiet, when your gut whispers that something isn't right. Where are we going? I asked. It's just a cool spot, he said. Chill. You'll like it. The road got narrower. Less streetlights. Houses farther apart. Eventually, we turned down a side road that led into a half-built housing development. Just dirt lots, a few unfinished structures, and chain-link fences. I sat up straighter. My heart started to pick up. Connor, can you take me home? I said. He didn't answer. Connor. Still nothing. I reached for my phone, but I had no service out there. Just a dead bar and that mocking SOS-only message in the corner. He pulled the car over near one of the unfinished houses and turned off the engine. Then he looked at me, not smiling, not joking, just quiet. I thought we'd hang out here for a bit, he said. I didn't move, didn't speak. He leaned closer. You're so pretty. You don't even know. I laughed nervously. Thanks, but seriously, can you take me home? He shook his head slowly. Why are you acting like this? I thought you liked me. I felt the panic rising in my chest. I don't feel comfortable out here, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I just want to go home. He sighed and leaned back in his seat, like I was being difficult. You're not like the other girls, he said. I thought you were cool. I didn't respond. I looked around, no lights, no other cars, just empty plots and shadows. My hands were shaking in my lap. Then I said the one thing I could think of that might work. I'm on my period. He blinked. What? I'm on my period, I repeated. Like bad. Cramps. I feel sick. I shouldn't have come out. He looked disgusted, like I'd just ruined something. He muttered something under his breath and started the car. We sat in silence as he drove back toward town. Every second felt like an hour. I kept my hand on the door handle, ready to jump if I had to. I kept telling myself, just don't piss him off. Get back to civilization. Then run. When we reached the main road, I saw the sign for the old train station, one that had been shut down for years but still had a parking lot and a few working streetlights. Can you drop me there? I asked. My friend's picking me up. He didn't argue. He pulled into the lot and stopped the car. I opened the door, got out, and shut it behind me without looking back. He waited there for a second, like he was expecting something. Then he drove off. I stood under one of the flickering lights and called my friend Natalie, who picked up on the third ring. I need you to come get me, I said. Now. She didn't ask questions, just asked where I was. I didn't cry until I got in her car. I told her everything on the ride home. Every detail. Every second of fear. She held my hand the whole drive. I never heard from Connor again. He unmatched me, disappeared from the app, like he'd never existed. I couldn't find his full name, couldn't report him. I didn't even know what school, if any, he really went to. All I had was a face I could still picture too clearly, and a voice that still chilled me when I thought about it. For a while, I blamed myself. For going. For lying to my parents. For not asking more questions. But over time, I realized something. The only mistake I made was trusting someone who didn't deserve it. I was 22 when this happened, living in a small apartment just outside of Minneapolis and working as a barista while I finished my degree. I'd been out of the closet for a couple of years by then, and I was slowly figuring out what dating looked like as a queer woman. I wasn't looking for anything serious, mostly just meeting people, talking, maybe going on the occasional date to see if something clicked. That's how I met Jenna. We matched on Tinder one night in early spring. Her profile said she was 23. She had this quiet confidence in her photos, dark hair, a few piercings, a half smile that made her look like she was always a few steps ahead of everyone else. Her bio said, "I make killer playlists and terrible life choices." We started talking that night. She was funny, a little dark, and quick-witted in a way that made it easy to keep texting. She mentioned her love for old horror movies and how she was learning to tattoo fruit before moving on to skin. I told her that was weirdly charming. She said I was weirdly charming too. After about a week of messaging, she asked if I wanted to meet in person. I said yes. We met at a coffee shop near campus, neutral territory, just in case. She was 10 minutes late and didn't apologize, which annoyed me a little, but she smiled when she walked in and made a joke about caffeine being her only personality trait, and I let it slide. In person, she was a little more awkward than she was over text, but that just made her seem more human. We talked for an hour, then another. She asked questions, listened when I answered. We laughed about how terrible most dating app experiences were. By the end of the night, I was interested. Not head over heels, but curious enough to want to see her again. We hung out twice more, once at a bookstore, once at her place to watch a movie. Nothing happened physically beyond kissing, but there was a vibe. Something slow burning. I liked it. Then one night we were talking about school just casually, and I asked her what her major had been. She paused. "I didn't actually go to college," she said. "I thought about it, but I'm not really a school person." That didn't bother me. I told her that. Then she said, "I should probably tell you something else." I waited. "I'm not 23, she said. "I'm 20. I blinked. She rushed to explain. Said she only put 23, so her profile would match with older people. That she didn't think it mattered. That she wasn't trying to be shady. I didn't say much. I just nodded slowly and said I needed some time to think. Because here's the thing, 20 and 22 isn't a huge gap. But lying about your age on a dating app, especially when it's one of the first things people see, feels like a violation. Like you made a choice to misrepresent yourself, so you could get something you might not have otherwise. I didn't message her for a few days. She messaged me 3 times. Then 5. Then she started liking all my Instagram posts. Old ones. From 2 years ago. My story views were flooded with her username. She sent a DM that just said, "I miss you." I didn't respond. That's when it got weird. I matched with someone new on Tinder a week later. Different profile, different name. But the pictures looked familiar, filtered, edited, but clearly Jenna. The bio said, "Not afraid to call out liars." I unmatched immediately. Then another profile popped up 2 days later. Same person. Slightly different name. Bio. Looking for someone who doesn't ghost. And then another. This one used my actual name in the bio. Ever been ghosted by someone named my name? Yeah, me too. I reported the profile. It was taken down within a day. But another one appeared later that week. This one had no photos. Just a blank profile with my initials in the bio. I stopped using the app altogether. It was like playing whack-a-mole. Every time I tried to move on, she popped up again. Watching. Waiting. Making me feel like I couldn't use dating apps without being found. Eventually, I blocked her on everything, Instagram, Facebook, even LinkedIn. I never responded to any of her messages. Eventually, she stopped. But for months after that, I'd get this tight feeling in my chest every time I saw a new profile photo on Tinder that looked vaguely familiar. Every time I posted something, I wondered if she was watching from a burner account. If she was still thinking about me. Still angry that I didn't want to keep seeing someone who had lied to me. It made dating harder for a long time. Because once someone crosses that line, once they decide they're entitled to your attention, even after you've said no, it's hard to feel safe again. It's not the age difference that stuck with me. It's the lie, the manipulation, the way she tried to punish me for walking away. I hadn't dated in almost 6 years. After my divorce, everything in my world became about my daughter, Emily. She was 9 when her dad and I split, and I remember thinking back then that I'd just focus on being a mom. I didn't want to bring anyone new into her life unless it was serious, and honestly, I didn't think I had the energy to date again. But people change. Time passes. And by the time Emily was 15, I started thinking maybe, just maybe, it was okay to want something for myself again. A few women at church encouraged me to try online dating. They said it was a good way to meet people without committing to anything too fast. So one night, I downloaded an app, filled out a profile, and started swiping. I wasn't expecting much, just some conversations, maybe coffee with someone who didn't make me want to claw my eyes out. That's how I met Jason. He was 42, polite, clean-cut, and said he worked in IT. His profile talked about faith, family, and hiking, 3 things that felt safe. Our first phone call lasted almost 2 hours. He had that calm, steady voice that made you feel like you could trust him. He asked about my work, my hobbies, and even what kind of music Emily and I liked to listen to in the car. Most guys didn't even mention my daughter. Jason brought her up right away, but not in a weird way. At first, it felt considerate, like he understood that dating a single mom meant acknowledging the kid came first. Our first date was lunch at a cafe near the church. He showed up early, brought flowers, and told me I looked beautiful in the most sincere, unassuming way. I remember thinking, maybe I finally met someone kind. He didn't try anything physical, didn't push, just smiled, paid for our meal, and said he'd love to see me again. We went on 3 more dates. Coffee, a walk at a local park, dinner at a place I'd been too nervous to go to alone. He never raised any red flags. He didn't rush things, didn't love bomb me. He was just nice, thoughtful, steady. Then he asked if he could come to our church's spring potluck. I hesitated. It wasn't that I didn't want him to meet people. I just didn't want to mix things too fast. But he said he'd love to meet the community that mattered to me, and I figured one public event couldn't hurt. I told Emily he'd be there, and she just shrugged. Cool, I guess, she said. She wasn't thrilled, but she wasn't upset either. The night of the potluck, Jason showed up with a crock pot of homemade chili and a plate of cornbread muffins. He wore a button-up shirt and brought extra napkins. Everyone loved him. The pastor shook his hand and joked that he was finally glad to see me smiling again. Jason laughed and said all the right things. I noticed him talking to a few other parents, then to some of the teens helping with cleanup. At one point, I saw him sitting at a folding table with Emily and 2 other girls from the youth group. He was smiling, relaxed, and they were laughing at something he'd said. I remember thinking, this is good. This feels normal. Later that night, after we got home, Emily went straight to her room. She was quiet, but I figured she was just tired from helping out. About an hour later, she knocked on my bedroom door. Can I talk to you? She asked. I nodded, putting down my book. She sat on the edge of my bed, picking at a loose thread on her sleeve. She didn't look scared exactly, but she looked uncomfortable. What's up? I asked. It's about Jason, she said. He was weird. I sat up straighter. What do you mean? She hesitated. Then she said, he kept asking me questions, like not normal ones. My stomach tightened. What kind of questions? She looked down. He asked if I had a boyfriend, if I'd ever kissed anyone. Then he asked if I had any pictures of myself from summer camp, in a swimsuit. I stared at her, and when I said no, he said, that's okay. Bet you look cute no matter what you wear. I didn't speak for a second. I was trying to stay calm, trying to keep my face neutral. Did he touch you? I asked. No, she said quickly. He didn't touch me, but it was gross, and he kept looking at me weird. Not like a normal adult. I nodded slowly. Thank you for telling me, I said. You did the right thing. She looked scared. You're not mad. Of course not, I said. You didn't do anything wrong. She hugged me, then went back to her room. I sat there for a long time after she left. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just felt this cold, still rage settle in my chest. I grabbed my phone and opened our text threads. I typed, we need to talk. Now. No response. I called. Straight to voicemail. I opened the dating app. His profile was gone. I checked his social media, Facebook, Instagram, even LinkedIn. Deleted. Wiped clean. I checked the number he'd been using. Disconnected. Everything gone. It was like he'd never existed. I called Pastor Reed the next morning and asked if he remembered getting Jason's last name or where he said he worked. He said no. Just remembered he worked in tech and had recently moved from Ohio. I called the police. Filed a report. Gave them everything I had, his phone number, the photos from his dating profile, the messages we'd exchanged. They were polite but not hopeful. Said it was difficult to trace someone without a last name or confirmed identity. Said he hadn't technically committed a crime, but they'd keep the report on file. I told the church. Told the parents of the other teens who'd been at the potluck. Everyone was horrified. A few of them asked why I hadn't vetted him more carefully. I didn't bother defending myself, because the truth was I had, and it still wasn't enough. It's been over a year since that night. Emily's okay. She talks openly about it now. Says it taught her to trust her instincts, to speak up, no matter how nice someone seems. I'm proud of her. I still get angry sometimes, thinking about how close it came, thinking about what could have happened if she hadn't said anything. I took a long break from dating after my last relationship ended. It wasn't dramatic, just one of those slow, quiet dissolves where you both realize you're not the right people for each other. After that, I focused on work, tried a few new hobbies, and told myself I wasn't in a rush. But after about a year, the loneliness started creeping in. I missed simple things, ordering takeout together, inside jokes, someone to debrief with after a long day. So I re-downloaded a dating app and matched with Rachel. She was pretty in a soft, unassuming way. Her photos were mostly candid, reading in a hammock, laughing with a dog I assumed was hers, hair tied up, minimal makeup. Her profile said she worked in marketing and loved horror movies, baking, and fixing broken furniture. We hit it off quickly. She was funny in a dry, sometimes biting way, and we had long text threads about everything from childhood snacks to whether AI would make us obsolete. She never came on too strong, and I appreciated that. It felt easy, natural. Our first date was at a little Thai place near my apartment. She wore a hoodie and jeans, and had a chipped black nail on her thumb. I remember that detail because she kept fidgeting with it while we talked. It was clear she was nervous, but once we started eating, she loosened up. We laughed a lot that night. She told me I had kind eyes. I told her she had a weirdly encyclopedic knowledge of 1970s slasher films. We had 2 more dates after that, coffee and a walk in the park, then dinner at a ramen spot. Each time, things felt better. It was casual but hopeful. By the 3rd date, we were sitting in my apartment, watching an old horror movie she'd brought over on DVD. She teased me for not owning a Blu-ray player. When the movie ended, she suggested we make popcorn. I went to the kitchen, and when I came back, she was standing in the middle of my living room, staring at a photo of me and my ex. "You still have this up?" I paused. "Oh, yeah, I guess I forgot about it." She turned to look at me, her expression unreadable. "Do you still talk to her?" "No," I said honestly. "We ended things a long time ago." She nodded, slowly. Then she asked, "Did you cheat on her?" I blinked. "What?" "No." Rachel's face stayed neutral, but her voice changed, got flatter. "You sure about that?" I laughed awkwardly. "Yeah, I'm sure." She didn't say anything, just walked into the kitchen and made the popcorn like nothing had happened. I tried to shake it off. We sat back down, and she curled up next to me on the couch. Everything seemed fine again. We finished the snack, watched a second movie, and eventually, around midnight, I offered to call her a ride home. "Can I stay?" she asked. It caught me off guard. Sure, if you want to." She nodded and went to the bathroom to brush her teeth with a travel brush she'd brought in her bag, like she'd planned to stay all along. I gave her a spare shirt to sleep in, and we both got into bed. She fell asleep instantly. I didn't. Something about the night felt off. I woke up around 4 a.m. to the sound of something crashing. I jumped out of bed and ran toward the noise. In the living room, I found her holding my laptop, well, what was left of it. The screen was shattered, the keyboard dangling by a cord. She'd smashed it against the floor. "What the hell are you doing?" I yelled. She turned to me, eyes wide and wild. "You lied to me," she said. "You're cheating." I saw the messages. "What messages?" She pointed at the broken laptop. "Don't pretend. You were going to break my heart." I took a step back toward the door. "Rachel, you need to leave. Now." She dropped the laptop and stormed past me into the bedroom. I debated calling the police. My hands were shaking. Then I heard a sound, metal clanging. I rushed in. She was standing by the window, holding a hammer. One I kept in a drawer for hanging things. I didn't even know she'd found it. "I'm going to jump," she said calmly. "If you call anyone, I'll do it." She wasn't crying. She wasn't yelling. Just standing there barefoot, in my shirt, holding a hammer and staring at the street below. I froze. I didn't know what to say, how to de-escalate something that had gone so sideways so fast. "Rachel," I said slowly, "I don't want you to get hurt." Please put the hammer down. She looked at me. Do you love me? I didn't respond. She repeated it louder. Do you love me? I shook my head. I don't know what this is, but it's not love. She stood there for a long moment, then dropped the hammer to the floor and collapsed into herself, sobbing. I called 911. She didn't resist when the paramedics came. Just sat on the floor, rocking slightly, whispering something I couldn't understand. The cops asked me a few questions, took a statement, said she'd be evaluated. I never saw her again. I later found out from a mutual connection, someone who recognized her from a photo I showed, that she'd done something similar before. Different guy, same pattern. Short relationship, sudden obsession, explosion. No one had pressed charges. I didn't either. I just wanted to move on. It took me months to feel comfortable inviting anyone over again. Longer to stop checking my door locks 3 times before bed. I still flinch a little when I hear something crash in the night. I keep the broken laptop in my closet, not because I want to remember her, but because I don't want to forget how quickly things can turn. How someone can seem completely fine until they're holding a hammer in your bedroom, accusing you of things you didn't do. And how sometimes the scariest part of dating isn't being hurt. It's realizing how much you didn't see coming. I met Eli on Hinge. He was 36, a software developer who, according to his profile, loved road trips, cooking, and deep conversations over strong coffee. He had a quiet smile in his photos, like he was always holding back laughter, and a beard that was just a little uneven. He looked normal, not polished, not trying too hard. That was refreshing. We started chatting on a Tuesday afternoon. By Saturday, we were texting nonstop. He was good at keeping the conversation going without being too much. Asked about my favorite books, and then actually read one of them. Called me quick-witted when I made a dumb joke about my cat knocking over my houseplants. Our first date was at a brewery downtown. He was a little taller than I expected, smelled like cedar and clean laundry, and had a way of listening that made me feel like I was the only person in the room. We shared 2 flights and a plate of pretzel bites. When I told him I was trying to rebuild trust after a toxic relationship, he didn't flinch. Just nodded and said, "You don't owe anyone your softness until they earn it." We ended the night with a hug. He didn't try to push anything. Texted me when he got home. Tonight was easy in the best way. We saw each other again the next week. Then again the week after that. Always at public places, coffee shops, bookstores, a couple of casual dinners. No pressure, no red flags. He never came on too strong. I appreciated that. After about a month of dating, he invited me over for dinner. "I make a mean chicken cacciatore," he said, "and I promise I won't overcook the pasta." I hesitated. I hadn't been to his place yet, but we'd spent hours together. He'd never made me uncomfortable, and I liked him, liked how calm I felt around him. So I said yes. He lived in a quiet neighborhood about 25 minutes from mine. Lots of trees, houses with wide driveways and wind chimes. His place was a small ranch-style house with a porch swing and mismatched flower pots. He greeted me at the door with a dish towel slung over his shoulder and a little bit of flour on his shirt. "You're early," he said, grinning. "I haven't finished burning dinner yet." I laughed, followed him inside. The house smelled like garlic and red wine. The kitchen was clean but lived in, wooden cutting board, spice jars lined up on a shelf, a fridge covered in postcards and grocery lists. He poured me a glass of red and told me to make myself at home. While he finished cooking, I wandered toward the living room. There were books stacked on the coffee table, a cat curled up on the couch, her name was Olive, and a record player in the corner. Everything felt normal, comfortable. When dinner was ready, we sat at the small table by the window. The chicken was perfect, the pasta slightly overcooked, and we both laughed when I pointed it out. We talked for 2 hours, maybe more. He asked questions about my family, my childhood, my writing. Told me about growing up in Vermont, and how he once got stuck in a snowstorm for 5 hours with only a granola bar and a dying phone. At one point, I asked where his bathroom was. "Down the hall, second door on the left," he said. "Don't open the door at the end. That's my basement. It sticks and is a pain to close again." I nodded and went to the bathroom. When I came out, I paused. The basement door wasn't completely shut. It was slightly ajar, enough to show the top of a wooden staircase. I don't know why I looked. Curiosity, I guess. I wasn't snooping. I just glanced. There was a light on down there. I could see the concrete floor, part of a metal shelving unit, and something white near the bottom step. I leaned slightly to get a better view. It was a folding table. On it, a laptop, a pair of gloves, and what looked like a wig. I froze. Not because of what I saw, exactly. It wasn't that any one item was horrifying. But something about the combination, the secrecy, the fact that he'd told me not to look, it all made my skin crawl. I stepped back and quietly pulled the door closed. When I returned to the kitchen, Eli was rinsing dishes. "Thanks for dinner," I said, keeping my voice steady. He smiled. "You okay?" "Yeah, just tired. I think I'm gonna head out." He offered to walk me to the car, but I declined. "Don't worry," I said. "I park like a professional escape artist." He laughed, and I forced a smile. But inside, I was buzzing. I didn't sleep well that night. Kept replaying the image of that basement. The table. The gloves. The wig. I told myself I was being dramatic. Maybe the gloves were for gardening. Maybe the wig was for a Halloween costume. Maybe the laptop was where he did freelance work. But I couldn't shake the feeling. The next day I Googled him. His name, the one he gave me, brought up a LinkedIn profile. Sparse, but it matched what he'd told me, software developer, Vermont native. I searched deeper. Found an old college newspaper article from 2007. He was listed as part of a campus coding competition. Same name, same major. But the photo wasn't him. Different guy entirely. I went back to his Facebook. His profile was private, barely used. A few pictures, none recent. Not many friends. Something felt off. I reverse image searched one of his profile pictures. It showed up on a stock photo site. Under the tag, friendly man in casual clothes. I sat there, stomach sinking. Heart racing. The man I'd been dating wasn't Eli. Or at least, not the Eli he pretended to be. I called the number he'd been using. It rang once, then went to voicemail. His voice was still there, calm, familiar. I didn't leave a message. I reported the profile on Hinge. Blocked the number. Sent the information I had, screenshots, messages, the stock photo link, to a friend who worked in cybersecurity. She called me that night. "I don't want to freak you out," she said, "but this guy's digital footprint is razor thin. Like, intentionally built to look real but vanish when you push." I filed a police report. Told them everything. They took it seriously, to their credit. Asked for all the messages, his address, the night I visited. They went to the house. It was empty. Furniture gone. Appliances too. The landlord said the tenant had moved out that morning. Paid cash for the last month. Left no forwarding address. The man I'd known as Eli had disappeared. I haven't heard from him since. I didn't expect to be dating again at 42. After my divorce, I told myself I'd take a year to just focus on me and my daughter, Kayla. She was 14 at the time, old enough to understand that her parents were better off apart, but still young enough that I worried about how everything would affect her. The first year post-divorce was about survival. Paying bills, rebuilding our routines, learning how to be alone without feeling lonely. Then slowly I started thinking about companionship again. I wasn't looking for anything serious. I just missed conversation. Missed being seen. Kayla was the one who finally nudged me. "Mom," she said one night over spaghetti, "you should go on a date." I raised an eyebrow. "That's a weird thing to hear from your teenager." She shrugged. "You're allowed to be happy." So I downloaded a dating app. I wasn't expecting much. Maybe a few awkward coffee dates, a couple of ghostings, and best case, someone who didn't make me want to fake an emergency halfway through dinner. That's when I matched with Greg. He was 45, worked in environmental consulting, and lived about 20 minutes away. His profile had pictures of him hiking, smiling with a golden retriever, and grilling something on a patio. He wrote that he was family-oriented, emotionally available, and ready for the next chapter. It felt safe. That was my first impression. He didn't have that overly polished, too smooth vibe that some men on the app had. He seemed normal, grounded. We messaged for a few days before talking on the phone. He had a deep, reassuring voice. Asked thoughtful questions. Told me he'd been divorced for a few years, no kids. Said he liked that I was honest about having a teenage daughter. "I admire single moms," he said. "It's the hardest job in the world." Our first date was coffee on a Sunday afternoon. He was warm and easy to talk to. No red flags. No weird comments. Just good conversation and a shared slice of lemon cake. We saw each other again the following weekend. Then again 2 days after that. He didn't rush anything. Didn't push for more than I was comfortable giving. He texted good morning. Asked how my meetings went. Sent me a photo of his dog, Ranger, curled up under a blanket. After about a month, I mentioned that my church was holding its annual spring potluck. I wasn't inviting him, not directly. I was just talking about it in passing. But he lit up. "That sounds lovely," he said. "I haven't been to a church dinner in years." I hesitated. "It's mostly families. Not really a dating scene." He smiled. "I'm not going to cruise for dates. I just think it'd be nice to meet the people important to you. Unless you'd rather I didn't come." I didn't know how to say no without sounding rude. And honestly, it didn't seem like a big deal. It was a public event. Plenty of people would be around. So I said sure. He offered to bring a dish, homemade meatballs, he said, from his grandmother's recipe. The night of the potluck, he showed up early, wore a blue button-down and khakis, brought a tray of meatballs, a container of extra sauce, and a bouquet of tulips for me. Everyone loved him. He was charming without being showy. Asked people about their kids, complimented the food, even helped fold chairs when the event was winding down. At one point, I saw him talking to Kayla and two of her friends. They were sitting on the edge of the stage in the fellowship hall, laughing at something he'd said. It made me smile. He didn't seem like the type to treat teenage girls as invisible, which I appreciated. Later, as we were packing up, Kayla was quieter than usual. "You okay?" I asked on the drive home. She nodded. "Yeah, just tired." She didn't bring him up. I didn't push. But something in her tone felt off. I figured maybe she was still adjusting. It was only the second time she'd been around him. 2 nights later, I found her sitting on her bed, scrolling through something on her phone, her face tight. "Hey," I said. "Want to talk?" She hesitated. Then she said, "Greg's weird." My stomach dropped. I sat on the edge of her bed. "What do you mean?" She looked at me, then down at her hands. During the potluck, he asked me if I had a boyfriend. And when I said no, he said, "Good. You're too pretty for boys your age. They wouldn't know what to do with you." I stared at her. Then she added, "He also asked if I had Instagram." I said no. He said that was a shame, that he'd love to see the kinds of pictures I post. I felt my chest tighten. "Why didn't you tell me earlier?" I asked gently. She shrugged. "I don't know. I thought maybe I imagined it. But I kept thinking about it, and it just felt gross." I hugged her, told her she did the right thing by telling me, that she didn't imagine it, that her instincts were good. After she went to bed, I sat in the kitchen, staring at the wall. I didn't want to believe it, but I did, because I remembered the way he'd looked at her, just a beat too long. The way he'd asked about her school, her interests, her schedule, all under the guise of polite adult conversation. I texted him the next morning. "We need to talk." He didn't reply. I called, straight to voicemail. By lunchtime, his number was disconnected. His dating profile was gone. His LinkedIn, Facebook, even the photos he'd sent me, all disappeared. I called the number listed on the environmental consulting firm he claimed to work for. They'd never heard of him. I drove by the address he gave me the first time we met. It was a house, but it was vacant. For sale. A real estate sign in the yard. The man I'd been seeing didn't exist. Or at least, not in the way I thought. I filed a report. Told the church leadership. Told the other parents whose kids had spoken to him. Everyone was horrified. A few people asked if I'd checked him out before bringing him around. I didn't have the energy to defend myself, because the truth is, I had. I'd Googled him, searched his number, looked up the company. Nothing screamed fake. And yet, I don't know what his real name was, or what he wanted, or why he vanished so quickly. But I know this. He was interested in my daughter, not in me, and he used me to get close to her. It's been almost a year since that night. Kayla's doing okay. We've talked about it more than once. She says it feels like a bad dream now, blurry around the edges. But she still doesn't like it when I mention dating. Says she wants me to wait a little longer. I'd been out of a long-term relationship for about a year, and I was cautiously trying to date again. Not looking for anything serious, but open to it if the right person came along. I was mostly matching with people close to my age, late 20s, early 30s, because I didn't feel like dealing with the different expectations that often come with big age gaps. That's when I matched with Jess. Her profile said she was 26. She had a short bio, books, coffee, sapphic chaos. Her photos were casual, one at a bookstore, one with a cat curled up on her lap, one mirror selfie wearing a band tee I actually recognized, which is rare. She messaged first, "You look like the type of person who alphabetizes their spice rack." I laughed. She wasn't wrong. Our conversation was easy from the start. She was clever, sarcastic, and just a little weird in a way that felt familiar. We talked about our favorite childhood books, bad tattoos, and how neither of us understood the appeal of brunch, but somehow kept ending up at it anyway. We texted for a week before meeting in person. She lived about 30 minutes away, in a smaller town just outside of the city. Said she worked part-time at a library and was finishing up a degree in graphic design. We met at a cafe halfway between us. She was a little shorter than I expected, with dyed blue hair, chipped nail polish, and a nervous energy that was oddly charming. She didn't make a lot of eye contact, but when she did, it felt intense. We sat outside and talked for 2 hours. She told me about a zine she was working on, and I told her about the worst job I ever had, which involved dressing as a mascot for a local car dealership. She laughed so hard she snorted, then apologized for it. That night, she messaged me, "I like you." I don't usually say that this fast, but I do. I smiled at the screen for longer than I should admit. We saw each other again the next week. Then again the week after that. Things stayed casual, but there was a growing closeness. We were texting constantly, sharing playlists, talking about things that felt heavier, past relationships, family stuff, fears we didn't usually say out loud. One night, we were lying on my couch watching a terrible horror movie, and she suddenly asked, "Would it be weird if I said I wanted to keep seeing you, like seriously?" I turned to her. "No, that wouldn't be weird." She smiled. "Good. I was worried you might think I'm too young or something." That made me pause. "You're 26, I said. "That's not too young." She went quiet for a second. Then she said, "Okay, so there's something I have to tell you." I felt my stomach tighten. "I'm not 26, she said. "I'm 20. I stared at her. She rushed on. "I know that's a lot, and I know I should have told you sooner. But I liked you, and I didn't think you'd even talk to me if I put my real age. I don't usually lie about this, but you seemed safe. You didn't message me anything creepy. You seemed kind." I didn't know what to say, because 20 isn't illegal. It's not like she was 16 or something, but it felt off, like I'd been tricked into something I didn't agree to. I asked her why she lied. She said, "People don't take me seriously when they know my real age. I hate how fast people dismiss you when you're young. Like you can't be smart or mature or interesting unless you've hit 25. I understood that. On some level, I really did. But still, "You lied to me," I said. "That matters." She looked down. "I know. I'm sorry." We sat in silence for a long time after that. Eventually, she left. I didn't say whether I'd see her again. The next day, I got a long message from her, apologizing again, saying she understood if I didn't want to talk anymore, but also saying she didn't regret matching with me, that she felt something real, even if it started from something fake. I didn't reply. I needed space, time to think, to figure out how I felt. A few days passed. Then I started getting messages from new Tinder profiles. Different names, different photos, but the same writing style, the same jokes. One profile said, "Some people ghost because they're cowards." Another, "Still thinking about those playlists." Then another that just said, "You never gave me a chance." I unmatched all of them. I blocked the numbers when they started texting me. But they kept showing up, each time slightly different, slightly more invasive. One night, I got a message from a new number that just said, "I saw you at the bookstore yesterday. Why didn't you say hi?" I had been at the bookstore. I hadn't mentioned it to anyone. I checked the windows, locked the door again, made sure the curtains were closed. The next day, I got a friend request on Instagram from an account named Your Second Chance. No profile picture, no posts. The bio said, "You made a mistake." I didn't respond. I just blocked again. But the thing is, once that line gets crossed, you start questioning everything. Every notification, every anonymous like, every glance over your shoulder in public. I stopped using Tinder, deleted my account entirely. I started posting less. I kept my location off. I changed my phone number. It didn't stop right away. The last message I got was a voice memo from a number I didn't recognize. I didn't open it. I just deleted it, blocked the sender, turned off my phone, and sat there in the dark for a long time. It's been over a year now. I haven't seen her since. Haven't heard anything. I don't know if she finally moved on, or just found someone else to fixate on. It started like most things do nowadays, on an app. I matched with a woman named Sarah on a Tuesday night. Her profile was simple. A few pictures of her at a farmer's market, one with a dog, and a short bio that read, books, bourbon, and brutal honesty. She looked warm, brown eyes, dark hair, a little smirk in every photo like she was always mid-thought, but not quite ready to share it. We exchanged messages for a few days. She was quick-witted, and our conversations had a rhythm that made it easy to keep texting. She asked real questions, not just WYD, or what music do you like. She asked about my childhood, about what I feared, about the last time I cried. I remember thinking, either this woman is deeply curious or she's trying to fast-track emotional intimacy. Maybe both. We met for dinner the following Saturday. She picked the place, an old-fashioned Italian spot tucked between a dry cleaner and a vape shop. The kind of place where the bread comes warm and the lighting is low enough to make everyone look a little better. When she walked in, she smiled like we were old friends. She wore a green sweater and jeans, nothing flashy, but she had presence. The kind that makes you sit up straighter. The conversation flowed easily. We talked about our worst dates. Hers involved a guy who brought his mother along. Mine, a woman who quoted Jordan Peterson during dessert. By the time the check came, I felt relaxed, even hopeful. But then something strange happened. As we waited for the waiter to return with the change, a man approached our table. He was tall, maybe mid-30s, with a shaved head and a hoodie that said "No Fear" in peeling letters. He didn't say anything at first. Just stood there, staring at Sarah. I felt the energy shift immediately. Sarah's face went pale. "Hi, Nick," she said, barely above a whisper. "Hey, babe," he said. "Didn't know we were seeing other people now." I looked at her, confused. "Is this your—" She stood up quickly. "We're not together," she said. "You need to leave." But Nick didn't move. Instead, he turned to me. "You think she's special?" he asked. "She's not. She's a liar. She'll ruin you." "Okay, man," I said, standing up too. "You need to back off." He laughed once, low and bitter. Then he grabbed a water glass from the table and threw it at me. It missed, but the splash soaked my shirt. Before I could react, the waiter rushed over, followed by the manager. Nick stepped back, hands raised, and said, "I'm leaving. Don't worry. But she's mine. Always will be." Then he walked out. No one chased him. We sat down in silence. I was shaking. Not from fear exactly. More from the adrenaline of being caught in something I didn't understand. "I'm so sorry," Sarah said. "I didn't know he'd be here. I didn't even think he'd still be in town." "Who is he?" I asked. "My ex," she said. "We broke up a year ago. He didn't take it well." "That wasn't not taking it well," I said. "That was stalking." She nodded. "I know. It's been off and on. He shows up sometimes. But I thought he'd finally moved on." I didn't know what to say. She looked so shaken, and I felt bad for her, but I also felt pulled out of the moment. Like the bubble we'd been in had burst, and now everything was under fluorescent light. I drove her home that night. She asked me to walk her to her door. I did. She hugged me before going inside. It was tight, grateful, but I noticed she looked over her shoulder twice before unlocking the door. After that, I wasn't sure what to do. Part of me wanted to give her space. The other part didn't want to vanish and make her feel abandoned. She texted me the next morning. Said she'd had a great time, minus the obvious. That I'd been kind. That she hoped I didn't think less of her. I told her I didn't. I wasn't lying exactly. I just didn't know how to feel. We went out again a week later. This time it was drinks at a jazz bar. She seemed lighter, more herself. She apologized again for Nick, said she'd talked to a lawyer once but didn't want to escalate things. "I don't want to live in fear," she said. "I don't want him to have that power." I admired that. But I also wondered if she was underestimating the situation. Over the next month, we kept seeing each other. She never brought up Nick again, and I didn't ask. I figured maybe he'd gotten the message. Until I found my car vandalized. It was a Friday night. We'd gone out for dinner, and I'd parked on the street near her place. When I came out, the windshield was cracked, and the driver's side door had been scratched deeply. On the paint, in red spray, were 2 words. "She's mine." I stood there, staring at it, not fully processing. Sarah came out behind me, saw the message, and froze. "Oh God," she whispered. "He didn't. He wouldn't." But he had. I filed a report. The cop wrote it down like it was just another form. Didn't seem too concerned. Said it was hard to press charges without proof. Sarah was quiet the whole time. I didn't go inside her place that night. I just drove home with the spray paint still fresh in the air. The next morning, I got a message from Nick. He'd found me on Facebook. The message was short. "She'll ruin you. Just like she ruined me." I showed Sarah. She blocked him again. Said she'd report it. But I could tell she was scared now too. We didn't talk for a few days. Then she messaged me. I understand if you want to disappear. I thought about it. A part of me wanted to stay. Wanted to be the guy who didn't flinch. But I couldn't stop thinking about the way he looked at her. The message. The damage to my car. How far he might go next time. I texted her back. I care about you, but I don't think I can do this. She didn't answer. I haven't seen her since. She deleted her dating profile. Went offline for a while. Sometimes I search her name, just to see if she's okay. I haven't found anything. No posts. No updates. It's like she disappeared. And maybe that's for the best. But I still think about her.